چھوڑ کر اب تیرا آستانہ کربلا جا رہا ہوں میں نانا، چھوڑ کر اب تیرا آستانہ کربلا جا رہا ہوں میں نانا، اپنا وعدہ ہے مجھ کو نبھانا، کربلا جا رہا ہوں میں نانا، بھوکے پیاسے 72 چلے ہیں، سر ہتھیلی پہ رکھ کر چلے ہیں، حشر میں آب کوثر پلانا، کربلا جا رہا ہوں میں نانا، ایک سجدے میں ایسا کروں گا جس کو محشر میں پورا کروں گا، سر قیامت کے دن ہے اٹھانا، کربلا جا رہا ہوں میں نانا، ہر یزیدی کو آیا پسینہ، پیارے اصغر نے جو کھولا سینہ، خاک میں دشمنوں کو ملانا، کربلا جا رہا ہوں میں نانا، بر محمد وآل محمد صلوات رحم اللہ من قرأ الفاتحہ. اعوذ باللہ من الشیطان الرجیم، بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم، بسم اللہ وباللہ وصلی اللہ علی محمد وآلہ وفوض امری اللہ، ان اللہ بصیر بالعباد، الحمد للہ الذی ہدانا لہذا وما كنا لنهتدی لولا ان ہدانا اللہ، لقد جاءت رسل ربنا بالحق، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين أبي القاسم محمد، روحي وجسمي ورواه العالمين لك الفداء يا ابن رسول الله، ثم السلام عليكم يا أهل العزاء الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق. صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
This is Surah number 96 of the Holy Quran, known as Suratul Iqra, means read. We are thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we have this opportunity again this year. And mind you, we are very fortunate to have that opportunity. There are many who are now 6 foot under, thinking, I wish I was there to do the ada of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. We have this opportunity, an opportunity that is to bring us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam. We pray to Allah that there are many brothers and sisters in Islam here and elsewhere who are not feeling well, that bihaqqi a'immai ma'sumin alayhi salam, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give them a quick and early recovery. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us from any dreadful diseases that are out there. And we pray to Allah that may Allah keep our children on the right path. In this surah, we see that it is the first surah to be revealed. This was the first surah. And the second surah that was revealed was Qalam, reed and pen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is showing us the importance of reading and writing. Very important. Because today there are hundreds of books out there on the events of Karbala, on the events of Mawlai Kainat, Hazrat Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, on the events of our Holy Prophet. But they came through a very difficult task to be presented to us today. You see, in Arabia, this is at the time of the Holy Prophet, there were only 17 people in Arabia that knew how to read and how to write. What they used to do is that these 17 people would come to the mosque of Madinah and people would sit around in circle. And it was these people through whom they used to hear about the Christians, about the Jews, about Banu Israel, and many of the events, because none of those Arabs had any idea how to read and how to write. So they used to enjoy, because they didn't know. And to them, whatever was being said was taken. and it was assumed that everything is true. The Holy Prophet of Islam wanted to change that. He wanted to take the people who were illiterate to become literate. It was his efforts after the Battle of Badr, when they captured the enemies. Many of these enemies knew how to read and to write. But the community there, of course, had no idea. So the Holy Prophet said to these people that if you teach, they were prisoners, but they said to the prisoners, the Holy Prophet, that if you teach the Arabs how to read and how to write, then you will be released from the prison. But the people objected. Many of the people objected that. He said, how can you have those who are our enemies teach us how to read and how to write? And the Holy Prophet said, it does not matter where it's coming from. What matters is the fact that you get what you need to have to become literate again. It doesn't matter. But we will release all of these people. Let them go. So you have to think that even today, there is a saying among Muslims, some Muslims, right? कि हमें कुरान काफी है, बाकी कोई किसी की जरूरत नहीं है, हदीसों की जरूरत नहीं है. ये कहां से आया सब? How did it become what it became today, and how people have picked up, even those who consider themselves to be literate, act illiterate? You see, what was happening is when Quran was being revealed through the Holy Prophet, Mawla Kainat was writing. It was important for him to write what was being revealed to the Holy Prophet. It was important for him to write what the Holy Prophet was saying. Many of the Islamic laws came from a sahifa, from a book that was written by Mawla Kainat. As he was hearing the Prophet, he was writing down. But when Umar ibn Khattab became the head, he decided to ban, and you can look at any history, he banned any writing of any hadiths, period. The reason he gave was, he said that if we tell the people to write hadiths, they will undermine the Holy Quran. But to understand the Holy Quran, it was important to have the hadiths. Because without that, we wouldn't understand. They would give us anything with Quran, and we would take it. Because we would not understand, because we don't know who said what. So it was very, very important that the Holy Prophet promoted that it was important for people to understand, to read and to write, so that history can be preserved. When Umar ibn Abdul Aziz came into power, he said, now take this order of Umar ibn Khattab out. I want hadiths to be written. Because hadiths is history. And if we lose history, we will have nothing to say to the people beyond us. It was important that that information was relayed, was written. But when it came to the Shia community, remember there was no Sunni Shia at those times. There was no such thing. Everybody was Shias actually. They were known as the Shia of Osman, the Shia of Umar, the Shia of Hazrat Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. And in Kufa, this is how they were divided. Followers of Osman, followers of Umar, followers of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. But the Shia community was determined that when every Imam came, not only did they tell the people, they wrote it down. The Ziyarat-e Waritha, Ziyarat-e Ashura, all of these things. What are these things? These are things that are written by our sixth Imam to give it to us. And they used to write that. And if they didn't, they made sure their children wrote it down. But the question is how did the history of Karbala came into place? How did it come into place? Who was responsible to write what happened in Karbala? It's very important for us to know. It's important for us to know. It's important for our children to know. When a child comes and asks you that question and says, well, who wrote all these things? What are we going to tell him? Therefore, it is important for us to know. There was one family, the family of Abu Mahnav. This was a family that was so in love with Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam that even during the battles of Badr and all the battles that were fought by Imam Ali alayhi salam, these families used to go and interview. And they used to write it down. They didn't publish it. They didn't say to anybody. But they went on writing down what each of those who were fighting in those wars, Khaybar and Badr and all those, what were they saying? This is the same family that wrote Maqtal. The Shahadat and the events of Karbala that we listened came from him. But there were others, right? There was Imam Ali Zayn Al-Abidin alayhi salam, an Imam. Imam Muhammad Al-Baqir alayhi salam, who was only 4 or 5 years of age during that time. There was, of course, the daughters of Imam Ali alayhi salam. They were all there. So they also had seen the history. And this family used to go to each of these ladies that came from Sham, and they would sit down with these ladies and make sure that they took down all the information that they could give them. They wrote everything down. Every detail was recorded. Of course, every attempt was made in history to destroy them. I mean, look at Sahih al-Bukhari. It was written 200 years after the Holy Prophet, not during his time. It was written afterwards. And that also they went around to gather that information. Sheikh Qulaini, Shia scholar, he did the same. Allama Majlisi. They gathered this information to preserve it so that there would be no destruction. During the time of Saddam in Iraq, in the year when he ran away and was later captured, at that time I had the opportunity to go to Najaf. Because I was heading Nasimco, they had asked me to come with them to a place and see the kind of work that was going on. Hundreds of Shia books. And Saddam, you see, when Allah wants to protect something, there could be 100 Saddams, they will never be able to do anything. There were books that were preserved in Najaf, in the very building where the library is today. It was preserved underneath. And when I went there, they showed me as to how they have decided to take every book that was there of the Shias and be microfilmed. And in those years, in those times, microfilming was the big thing. So they were microfilming every book. I said, why are you doing that? He said, you have no idea. If a tyrant ever comes back into this country, they will destroy everything. And then we will have nothing. So they were actually microfilming and putting that together. These were the efforts. And when you see this family, and there were 4 other people that took part in that, and that one was Hisham bin Qalbi, the other one was Awan ibn Hakam, and then was Akbar bin Nabata, who also wrote Maktal, and Jabir bin Yazid al-Ja'fi. These were all critical people who had taken part in making sure that the history of Karbala is preserved. And it was preserved like that. Now there was a reporter, and you will hear the name quite often, Hamid ibn Muslim. You will hear many times that Hamid ibn Muslim came across Janab Sakina bint al-Hussein and all that. He was an independent reporter. He was not from Yazid, and he wasn't from the Ahlul Bayt side. He was an independent reporter. But what Yazid had done was that he said, because one of the questions that comes up is that, right, how many arrows were hit on the body of Abu Abdullah Hussein? Who counted all that? Somebody would have done that. Yazid was very proud of that. So what he did was he established a reward program. And he said, if anybody gives me an account of all the weapons or all the arrows that were used in killing Abu Abdullah al-Hussein and his companions, I will reward them. Hamid ibn Muslim was one of them. He would go and they would give him money because he would count and bring a count back and he would get money. Now there were discussions between Hazrat Abbas and Imam Hussein. There were discussions between Hazrat Ali Akbar and Imam Hussein. Well, who wrote all that? Who was present at that time? You see, Imam Hassan Mujtaba alayhi salam had 7 sons who were in Karbala. 7 of them. One son survived, and his name was Hassan Muthanna. He survived. He was injured. The 6 died. Hassan Muthanna, when he came back after the event of Karbala, he married the daughter of Imam Hussein, Janab Fatima Sughra. That is whom he got married to. But what he did was, it was he who sat with all these writers that were writing the history. He sat with them, and he is among one of those who told the history as to what did Hazrat Abbas say to Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and what did Imam Hussein say to Hazrat Abbas. So if you look at all this history, it is compiled by Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam and those who are followers. Among one of the ladies that really gave good history, her name was Zayn. Who was she? She was the wife of Zuhair ibn Qayn. Zuhair ibn Qayn was known as the Shia of Osman. He was returning from Hajj and he was going towards Kufa. On the way, Imam Hussein alayhi salam had his tent on one side, Zuhair ibn Qayn had it on the other side. And Imam Hussein alayhi salam knew who was in that tent. It was Zayn and Zuhair ibn Qayn. So Imam said, call Zuhair. Let me talk to him. Zuhair sat down with Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And Imam gave him about the mission for which he was going. He heard everything. He came to his wife Zayn and he says to his wife that this is what Abu Abdullah al-Hussein wants me to do. He wants me to join him. And his wife was an Alawi. She was following Imam Ali alayhi salam. She was a Shia of Imam Ali. So she says to him, then what are you thinking about? He says, I'm thinking whether I should join or not. And his wife said, this is the grandson of the Holy Prophet. How can you say no to him? Go with him. I will support you. You go. It was this lady that when the time came on the day of Ashur, and it was Zuhair ibn Qayn. Zuhair ibn Qayn took a lot of arrows on his body to protect Abu Abdullah al-Hussein when Imam Hussein was praying namaz. He used to stand behind him. But it was this lady who asked the person, one of the people who was working, she said to him, take this piece of cloth and go to the land of Karbala and place it on my husband, because they have taken all the clothes out of his body. You go and place it on him. And she said, then you come back. When he came back, he said, she said, did you place the clothes on my husband? And the servant said, no, I didn't. He said, why didn't you do it? He said, because of Abdullah al-Hussein's body was there also. And this body also needed covering, so I covered Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. When Imam leaves Madinah, imagine in the month of Rajab, on the 28th of Rajab, he takes everybody with him. He made a list of people as to who are these people that is going to join me. He made a list of people. The daughter of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, Fatima al-Sughra, goes to Ali Akbar and says, Ali Akbar on that moon. Janab Umm Farwa must have seen Qasim's image. Janab Zaynab would have seen the image of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم بحق محمد وأنت المحمود، بحق علي وأنت الأعلى، بحق فاطمة وأنت فاطر السماوات والأرض، بحق الحسن وأنت المحسن، بحق الحسين وأنت قديم الإحسان. إلهي توبة قبل الموت، وراحة عند الموت، ومغفرة بعد الموت، والنجاة من النار، ودخولا في الجنة، وعافية من كل بلاء الدنيا وعذاب الآخرة. ماتم حسین.
ہو گیا مرنا ستم عباس کا، کرتے ہیں ماتم حرم عباس کا. ہو گیا مرنا ستم عباس کا، کرتے ہیں ماتم حرم عباس کا. ہو گیا مرنا ستم عباس کا، کرتے ہیں ماتم حرم عباس کا. ہو گیا مرنا ستم عباس کا، کرتے ہیں ماتم حرم عباس کا. ہو گیا مرنا ستم عباس کا. جن کو ماتم کرنا ہے یہاں سب شامل ہو جائیں یہاں پہ، اور دارا لگا کے اور ماشاءاللہ اور کھول کے ماتم کریں. سید الشہداء کو پرسہ دینا ہے، جناب سیدہ کو پرسہ دینا ہے. مرنا ستم عباس کا، سب آواز ملا کے. ہو گیا مرنا ستم عباس کا، ماتم حرم عباس کا. ہو گیا مرنا ستم عباس کا، ماتم حرم عباس کا. ہو گیا مرنا ستم عباس کا، ماتم حرم عباس کا. ہو گیا مرنا ستم عباس کا. ماشاءاللہ ماتم کرتے رہیں. کرتے ہیں ماتم حرم عباس کا. ہو گیا مرنا ستم عباس کا. لو چلا قافلہ اڑاتا ہوا، تشنہ لب بیردا. لو چلا قافلہ بین کرتا ہوا، خاک اڑاتا ہوا، تشنہ لب بیردا. سب مل کے. لو چلا قافلہ، لو چلا قافلہ، خاک اڑاتا ہوا، تشنہ لب بیردا. لو چلا سب مل کے. قافلہ خاک اڑاتا ہوا، خاک اڑاتا ہوا، تشنہ لب بیردا. لو چلا ماشاءاللہ سب مل کے. رسم پردہ گری جس کے گھر سے چلی، شہزادی وہیں ویردا ہو گئی. مر نہ جائے کہیں غم سے بلتے علی، آئے اب ہوگا کیا. لو چلا سب مل کے. قافلہ خاک اڑاتا ہوا، بین کرتا ہوا، تشنہ لب بیردا. لو چلا قافلہ بین کرتا ہوا، سب مل کے. خاک اڑاتا ہوا، تشنہ لب بیردا. لو چلا قافلہ جس کی چاہت پہ کونین کو راج ہے، جس کی ثانی زمانے میں کوئی نہیں. چاہنے والے ہو بھائی اور ہو بہن، رو رہی ہے جدا. ماشاءاللہ مل کے. قافلہ بین کرتا ہوا، خاک اڑاتا ہوا، تشنہ لب بیردا. بس میں پردہ گری جس کے گھر سے چلی شہزادی وہیں بیردہ ہو گئی مر نہ جائے کہیں غم سے بنتے علی آئے اب ہوگا کیا لو چلا قافلہ بین کرتا ہوا ماشاءاللہ مومن خاک اڑاتا ہوا جشن لب میرا لو چلا قافلہ بین کرتا ہوا خاک اڑاتا ہوا جشن لب میرا لو چلا قافلہ اپنی صورت دکھا دو مجھے میری جان پھر خدا جانے نہ ہو یا کہ نہ ہو آؤ اکبر اٹھو ہم کو روشن کرو مان رو کے کہا لو چلا قافلہ بین کرتا ہوا خاک اڑاتا ہوا جشن لب بیدا لو چلا قافلہ بین کرتا ہوا خاک اڑاتا ہوا جشن لب بیدا لو چلا قافلہ اپنی صورت دکھا دو مجھے میری جان پھر خدا جانے نہ ہو یا کہ نہ ہو آؤ اکبر اٹھو ہم کو روشن کرو مان رو کے کہا لو چلا قافلہ بین کرتا ہوا خاک اڑاتا ہوا جشن لب میرا سب مل کے قافلہ بین کرتا ہوا خاک اڑاتا ہوا جشن لب میرا لو چلا قافلہ چار جانب سے یہ آتی ہے یہ صدا الوداع 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 اپنے پیاروں کے لاشوں سے ہو کر جدا خون روتا ہوا لو چلا قافلہ بین کرتا ہوا خاک اڑاتا ہوا جشن لب بیدا لو چلا قافلہ بین کرتا ہوا خاک اڑاتا ہوا جشن لب بیدا لو چلا قافلہ ثانیہ فاطمہ بنت شیر خدا کیسے بازار میں جائے گی بیردہ کیسے ثانی ہوگا ہوشاں کا راستہ رو رہی ہے فضا لو چلا قافلہ بین کرتا ہوا خاک اڑاتا ہوا جشن لب بیدا لو چلا قافلہ بین کرتا ہوا خاک اڑاتا ہوا جشن لب بیدا لو چلا قافلہ غم حسین منانا بہت ضروری ہے غم حسین مل کے منانا بہت ضروری ہے غم حسین منانا بہت ضروری ہے غم حسین منانا بہت ضروری ہے غم حسین منانا بہت ضروری ضروری رہے نجات میں خورشید زندگی کے لیے بقا کے واسطے خالق کی بندگی کے لیے جہالتوں کے اندھیروں میں روشنی کے لیے جہالتوں سب مل کے روشنی کے لیے جہالتوں کے اندھیروں میں روشنی کے لیے حسین شام جلانا بہت ضروری ہے ہمیں حسین منانا بہت ضروری ہے ہمیں حسین منانا وہ جس میں اصغر معصوم کا تبسم ہے وہ جس میں اشکوں کا سیلاب ہے تلاطم ہے وہ جس میں آخری شبیر کی صدا گم ہے وہ جس میں آخری شبیر کی صدا گم ہے وہ جس میں آخری شبیر کی صدا گم ہے ارے وہ داستان سنانا بہت ضروری ہے ہمیں حسین منانا بہت ضروری ہے یہ وہ حسین منانا بہت ضروری ہے یہ وہ حسین ہے جو فقر ابن آدم ہے کہ جس کے زیر قدم رفعت دو عالم ہے اسی حسین کے غم میں یہ شور ماتم ہے اسی حسین کے غم میں یہ شور ماتم ہے اسی حسین کے غم میں یہ شور ماتم ہے یہ بات سب کو بتانا بہت ضروری ہے ہمیں حسین منانا بہت ضروری ہے ہمیں حسین منانا بہت ضروری ہے وہ بھوک و پیاس وہ برچھی وہ سینہ اکبر وہ مشق اور وہ بازو کٹے جو دریا پر وہ شہ کا آخری سجدہ وہ شمر کا خنجر وہ شہ کا آخری سجدہ وہ شمر کا خنجر وہ شہ کا آخری سجدہ وہ شمر کا خنجر ہر ایک کو یاد دلانا بہت ضروری ہے ہمیں حسین منانا بہت ضروری ہے ہمیں حسین منانا بہت ضروری ہے وہ جس نے دین بچایا ہے کربلا کر وہ جس نے آخری سجدہ کیا تہے خنجر وہ جس کے در پہ فرشتے جھکا رہے ہیں سر وہ جس کے در پہ فرشتے جھکا رہے ہیں سر وہ جس کے در پہ فرشتے جھکا رہے ہیں سر اس کے در پہ جھکانا بہت ضروری ہے ہمیں حسین منانا بہت ضروری ہے ہمیں حسین منانا بہت ضروری ہے خاموش آل محمد کا آج ڈیرا ہے بالا کا شام غریباں میں گپ اندھیرا ہے رسول زادیاں اور خاک پر بسیرا ہے رسول زادیاں اور خاک پر بسیرا ہے رسول زادیاں اور خاک پہ بسیرا ہے قضا کا فرش بچھانا بہت ضروری ہے ہمیں حسین منانا ماشاءاللہ مومنین. غم حسین منانا ضروری ہے. وہ 6 مہینے کے اصغر جنہیں نہ پانی ملا، وہ نوجوان علی اکبر جنہیں نہ پانی ملا، وہ کربلا کے 72 جنہیں نہ پانی ملا، وہ کربلا کے ماشاءاللہ جنہیں نہ پانی ملا، وہ کربلا کے 72 جنہیں نہ پانی ملا. سبیل ان کی لگانا بہت ضروری ہے. ہمیں حسین منانا بہت ضروری ہے. ہمیں حسین منانا بہت ضروری ہے. حسین ہی تو سہارا ہے آدمی کے لیے، حسین ہی کی ضرورت ہے زندگی کے لیے. عروج اعظم حسینی کو برتری کے لیے، عروج اعظم حسینی کو برتری کے لیے، عروج اعظم حسینی کو برتری کے لیے. نشاہ راہ بنانا بہت ضروری ہے. ہمیں حسین تو یہ آخری سے سب ایک ایک لائن سب میرے ساتھ دہرائیں گے، ایک ایک لائن سب دہرائیں گے. ہمیں حسین منانا بہت ضروری ہے. حسین ہی تو سہارا ہے آدمی کے لیے، حسین ہی تو سہارا ماشاءاللہ حسین ہی کی ضرورت ہے زندگی کے لیے، حسین ہی کی ضرورت ہے زندگی کے لیے. عروج اعظم حسینی کو برتری کے لیے، عروج اعظم حسینی کو برتری کے لیے، عروج اعظم حسینی کو برتری کے لیے. نشاہ راہ بنانا بہت ضروری ہے. ہمیں حسین منانا بہت ضروری ہے. ہمیں حسین منانا بہت ضروری ہے. ہمیں حسین منانا بہت ضروری ہے. کیا حسین صلی علی محمد علی محمد. متوجہ زیارت.
السلام علیک یا رسول اللہ، السلام علیک یا امیر المؤمنین، السلام علیک یا فاطمة الزہراء سیدۃ النساء العالمین، السلام علیک یا حسن المجتبی، السلام علیک یا ابا عبد اللہ الحسین، السلام علیک یا علی ابن الحسین ومحمد ابن علی وجعفر ابن محمد وموسى ابن جعفر وعلي ابن موسى ومحمد ابن علي وعلي ابن محمد والحسن ابن علي. السلام عليك يا صاحب العصر والزمان،
الأمان الأمان الأمان. السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن. السلام عليك يا كعبة الإيمان. السلام عليك يا إمام الإنس والجان. عجل الله تعالى فرجيك وسهل الله تعالى مخرجيك وظهورك وجعلنا من أنصارك ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وأينا حتى تسكنه أرزك توعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.